The air in the hallway was cold and it smelled like cleaning supplies and the flowers from the main room. I could hear the music starting inside, the beat of the first dance about to begin. My mom played with her necklace. My dad wouldn't look at me. I just held onto the present I had brought, smoothed down my dark red dress, and said nothing. I didn't cry or argue. I just stood up and walked outside. 5 minutes later, the music stopped and a single scream tore through the entire wedding. Here is what happened next. The morning air was crisp and fresh, the kind you only find in expensive mountain towns. My sister Chloe had picked the Mountain View Lodge for its fancy feel. It was the sort of place people went just to take pictures to show they were important. The main room was all glass, looking out over a lake, decorated with flowers and fancy lights. Every table inside shone under the huge lights. My table, it turned out, was out in the hall next to the garbage bins. I had driven 4 hours from the city by myself, thinking about my mom's last text. Just be good today, Maya. It's Chloe's day. That was all I ever was to her. A reminder to be quiet. To not cause trouble. To not let anyone remember they had 2 daughters. Growing up, we were that classic pair you see in movies. The perfect child and the one who was just there. Chloe had awards and ribbons. I had school reports no one ever signed. She would cry and get hugged. I would solve my own problems and get ignored. Mom said I was the easy one. Dad said I was strong. They both meant the same thing. I was invisible and that was easier for them. The last time I felt like part of the family was 3 years ago at Thanksgiving. The house smelled like a pie that was a little burnt and cleaning spray. Chloe was away on a trip with her boyfriend and for once, the house felt calm. Mom asked me to get an old photo book from her bedroom drawer. But I found a small brown book instead, its cover worn from use. I opened it and saw that every page started the same way. Chloe's first day of school, Chloe's favorite food, Chloe gets into college. There wasn't a single line about me. Not my birthday, not even my name. When I asked my mom about it, she smiled like I was being silly. You never needed that, sweetie. You were always just fine on your own. That night I learned the difference between being overlooked and being erased. I was thinking about that book as I walked towards the main room, my shoes making a sound on the floor. Through the glass doors, I saw them taking pictures. Mom in a light gold dress, Dad fixing his collar, and Chloe shining in her white wedding dress. She looked over at me once and smiled the kind of smile you give a stranger. A woman with a clipboard came up to me. "You are Miss Evans?" she asked. "Yes," I said. Her polite smile faded when she saw my name on her list. "You are on the list for the hallway seating." I actually laughed, waiting for her to say she was joking. She didn't. Hallway seating. Right next the service entrance and the trash cans. I followed her pointing finger to a small, lonely folding table. From there, I could see the whole party, all the sparkle and laughter. But there was a wall between us, a real one and one you could feel. I put my gift on the table, a small box wrapped in blue paper that I had picked out with care, and I just stared through the glass. Then, the noise changed. I looked up and saw Chloe walking towards me, her flowers in one hand, her veil flowing behind her. She stopped right before the doorway. "Well," she said, tilting her head. "Looks like they've finally found the right spot for you." I was so shocked I could barely speak. "What does that mean?" She gave me a small, cold smile. "I guess you just don't count." The words were so simple, so calm, but they cut deeper than anything. "I guess you don't count." Like it was just a fact. For a moment, I said nothing. I could feel my throat getting tight. Behind her, someone was calling for the bride to come back for photos. She didn't move. She wanted me to cry or yell. I didn't. I just looked at her until her smile started to look weak. "You know," I said quietly, "there was always enough room for both of us. You're the one who kept taking it all." Her face hardened. "Oh, come on, Maya. Not everything is about you. This is my day. Can't you just try to be happy for me? I let out a small, tired laugh. You made sure I couldn't even sit in the same room. What is there for me to be happy about? For just a second, I saw something else in her eyes, maybe a flicker of worry. But then she lifted her head high. You always twist everything. Maybe Mom was right. You just make everything harder. Hearing Mom felt like a punch. I thought of that brown book again. I'm not the one making it hard, I said. You just don't like it when I see things clearly. She rolled her eyes. You sound just like Dad, sad and jealous. Face it, Maya. No one here needs your approval. She turned and walked away, her perfume hanging in the air. I watched her go and felt the familiar sting in my eyes. But this time, it was different. It felt clean. When the door closed, I picked up the blue box from the table. I touched the ribbon once, and then I put it in my bag. If they didn't want me inside, that was fine. But I wasn't leaving with nothing. Not this time. I sat for a while, just listening to the music from inside. It was time for their first dance. I could picture it all, the perfect scene. I stood up slowly. My reflection in the glass looked calm, maybe even strong if you didn't look too close. The box in my bag felt heavy. It wasn't just a gift. It was proof. A few weeks before, I had met one of Chloe's old friends in the city. Over lunch, she told me everything. Chloe had been bragging for months about her plan to marry Ben. He's so trusting, she had said. A few fake tears and I get the house, the money, everything. She had laughed. My blood ran cold. I hadn't planned to do anything with that information until today. Before I left the hallway, I walked back to the table near the entrance where all the gifts were. The wedding planner was busy with other things. I quietly placed the small blue box right on top of the pile meant for Chloe and Ben. My writing on the tag was clear and neat. Inside, on top of a nice photo frame, was a simple note and printed copies of those messages her friend had shown me. It wasn't an attack. It was just the truth. I stepped back, checked my dress one last time, and walked out. The evening air was cold. The lake was dark and still. I could hear the sound of people clapping inside. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I got to my car, the gravel crunching under my shoes. No big scene, no final words, just the sound of the car door closing. As I started the engine, I looked back at the bright windows and the shadows moving inside. Let the truth find its way, I whispered to myself. Inside, the party was still going. The music was soft. People were laughing. Ben spun Chloe around on the dance floor and everyone was taking pictures. From outside, it looked like a perfect little world in a snow globe. Then, someone decided it would be fun for them to open a gift in front of everyone. Chloe, laughing, picked up the blue box and pulled the ribbon. The paper fell off. She opened the lid and saw the frame, and under it, the folded note. It slipped out and landed on the table. Ben saw the printed messages before she could grab them. He read one line out loud, his voice flat. He's so easy to manage. Just cry a little and he gives me whatever I want. The music didn't stop all at once, it just kind of faded. The singer missed a note. Chloe's hands were shaking. This is a lie. Someone is trying to. Ben didn't let her finish. He just kept reading, page after page. Each message was worse than the last. Jokes about the prenup, plans to move our parents into his house. The smile she had given me was now gone from her face. Who sent this? She demanded, her voice sharp. Ben's mother, Eleanor, walked over slowly. She had heard my name, Maya, whispered by a guest. I think you should let him finish, she said calmly. These messages were sent to me this morning by mistake from a number I think you know. Chloe's face went white. That can't be. Ben's voice was low and hurt. It's real, Chloe. The dates are all right. He held up the last page. It was a picture of her text. It said, "The house will be mine by the end of the year." A wave of gasps went through the crowd. People took out their phones. The photographer stopped taking pictures. Someone said, "Oh my God." Chloe tried to grab the papers, but Ben's mother stepped in front of her. "You did this to yourself, dear." That's when the screaming started. It wasn't loud at first, more like a choked sound. Chloe stumbled back, her dress catching under her feet. "No, you don't understand. He's lying. She did this. My sister." Ben's face was tight. "Maya didn't write these. You did. She planted them. She's jealous. She's always been stop." Ben's voice cut through the room. "You did this. You humiliated her today, and you thought no one would ever find out who you really are." Every person in the room was staring. The music cut off completely. A little kid asked, "What's wrong?" Chloe's perfect day was falling apart. She turned to our parents. "Do something." Our mom, Helen, stood by their table, pale and silent, her glass shaking in her hand. Our dad looked at the ground. For the first time ever, neither of them came to her rescue. "You knew," Ben said, his voice shaking. "You knew what you were doing." He took a folded paper from his pocket and put it on the table. "This is for an annulment. I already signed it." Chloe stared at the paper like it was on fire. "You can't do this to me." "I'm not doing anything," he said. "You did it all yourself." The room was so quiet you could hear the lights buzz. Then came the sound of the photo frame hitting the floor and breaking. "She's behind this. Maya is behind all of it." Ben's mother sighed. "The only thing your sister did was tell the truth." Outside, I was sitting in my car with the engine running. The lights from the party reflected on the lake. I couldn't hear the words, but I heard the scream. It was sharp and loud, echoing over the water, followed by the sound of something falling over. It was the sound I had been waiting for my whole life, not because I was mean, but because it meant it was finally over. By the time I got back to the city, the sun was starting to come up. My phone buzzed again and again in the cup holder. Missed calls from my mom, my dad, and a number I didn't know. I didn't answer any of them. The quiet in my car was better than anything they had to say. When I walked into my apartment, it smelled like home. I hung up my dark red dress. It looked like a piece of armor I had worn without knowing it. A new text appeared from my mom. "Please answer, Maya." We didn't know. But she had known. She knew every time she told me to be quiet, every time she laughed at Chloe's jokes, every time she said, "You're fine." I put my phone down and opened my computer. I looked at a map of the coast and picked a small town I'd never been to. I booked a cabin for a week. It sounded like peace. Before I left, I went out onto my balcony. The city air felt new. They could keep their sorries and their excuses. I had my own truth now. For the first time in my life, being quiet didn't mean I was invisible. It meant I was finally free. At my sister's wedding, I was given a seat by the trash cans. This morning, I'm sitting by the ocean. The silence is the same, but the meaning is different. Back then it was shame. Now it is peace. Sometimes the strongest answer isn't a scream. It's the sound of you walking away without looking back. They thought I would always be there, waiting for a place at their table. But I don't wait anymore. I don't ask for a space. I make my own. If you have ever been pushed aside by the people who were supposed to love you, remember this. Leaving isn't losing. It's the start of finding yourself. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from your own family?